listeners an idea, I want to back up. You mentioned that you've done on an annual basis over a specific region in the Midwest about 500 tests, and I know there was about 100 done recently. And we also had the element graphene show up in most of those tests, correct?
Yes, graphene is like you had speculated that graphene was also being used for geoengineering operations, and we were able to confirm that indeed there are, not in all events, not in all rainfall or snowfall, but in the majority of them, there are graphene oxide is showing up in the samples that we collected. And that, again, that's in a nano scale. It's less than 450 nanometer size. Anything above that we did not test, so it could be much more, right? All those numbers we are giving here, it's all on the nano scale. There could be larger particles that between that 2 micron and 0.45 microns that we did not measure, so that could be even much more than what we are talking about. But yes, graphene is present now. And graphene is very interesting, Danny, because this graphene stuff, I don't even know why they are still working with graphene. They should have stopped graphene when they first discovered. They should put that on the side because the amount of issues that this is proving to be, it's unbelievable. I don't know if you are aware of this, but, well, it's going to link several different topics here, Danny, and I'm going to try to keep it in a way that is logical and makes sense. But before we get into the graphene, let's talk a little bit about endocrine disruptor elements that are being spread on the environment. I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there were a lot of hypes about atrazine, especially atrazine, changing sex in frogs. And what happened is that atrazine is known for having endocrine disrupting function. It will mess up the hormone system in the organism. And they found this in amphibians, and they saw that it does happen. Now, they only looked at atrazine. Now, I believe that many of the other pesticides being applied also have that very same effect. Now, when you look in the literature review, you will find that you have very contrasting results reported. Some research will show that, yes, it's indeed very negative and does have very high disrupting properties in terms of endocrine system. And then you have other studies that show that it did not show to have any negative impact on the endocrine system of the species that are being studied. Now, if you look closely into those studies, they usually will take organisms that they're studying, they will put in solutions with different concentrations of those compounds, for example, atrazine or Roundup, glyphosate, whatever you want to study. And then they will leave those organisms there for a few hours or maybe a day, at the most a couple days, and then they grow the organism for their full life in very clean water. And then they will say, well, it had a negative impact or have a positive impact. It did not cause any damage. Now, I would like to see what water body only has atrazine or glyphosate in them for a couple hours a day. Ever since those pesticides have been used, I would say that most of the water bodies have those chemicals in them for the entire year, right? It's not something that happens for a day or two. It's there every single day. And that's what those studies miss. They are not putting those microorganisms in the contaminated water for the entire life cycle. They're only doing for a few days, and they're finding those massive negative impacts on them.
And then I wonder what would happen. But all by design, yes. Though, right? I mean, obviously by design that everything is completely skewed, just like the so-called air quality testing, which tests only for, at best, PM 2.5 microns, generally 10 microns. So all of these nanoparticles, literally tens of millions of tons, if not hundreds of millions of tons, go completely undetected, correct?
That's correct, and it is by design. I cannot see any other way because you can look at the EPA right now, and they have a report, I think it came out in 2018, that they showed that over 50% of all water bodies, including rivers, streams, lakes, in the United States are polluted with at least one pesticide, or pollutants. So it's unrealistic to think that you can do a trial to test the negative effect or to test whatever effect of a chemical and only expose that organism for a couple of hours to a couple of days, when in reality they're being exposed their entire life. So I don't really understand why scientists really go with it. I think I do, is because they are being told that there's no reason to look for those things, so let's just do a study that fits with the answer that we want, and that's what they've been doing.
That's exactly right. And now, I've stressed on our weekly Global Alert News, geoengineeringwatch.org broadcast, I've stressed over and over and over, so-called